Okay, so something pretty fundamental has changed about the rules for British citizens entering the UK. Your British passport, which you'd think is an automatic key to your own country, well, it now comes with some new conditions that are, well, they're pretty shocking. And it raises a question that honestly would have been unthinkable until very recently.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. Could you, a British citizen, with your valid British passport in hand, actually be turned away at the border? It sounds impossible, right?
Well, according to the source material we're looking at today, after a hypothetical date of February 25th, 2026, that impossible scenario, it could actually become a reality for some people. So how on earth did we get here?
Well, it all comes down to a really significant, but kind of under the radar, change in Britain's border rules. And it's all rooted in a new piece of legislation.
It's called the Border Security Act. Now, the magic words here are enhanced residency verification. And what does that mean? Basically, it's a new requirement to prove you still have a real, meaningful connection to the UK. This gives Border Force officials brand new powers to question British passport holders about their ties to the country. And yep, in some cases, refuse them entry if those ties just don't seem strong enough.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. Before, it was simple. British passport meant you were coming in, no questions asked. Now it's your passport plus you might have to prove your connection to Britain. It's a completely different situation.
Okay, so the big question is, who does this really affect? Now, it doesn't apply to everyone, but the source has identified 4 very specific groups of British citizens who are now most at risk of getting questioned or even turned away under these new rules.
This gives us a great snapshot. So we're talking about dual nationals who live abroad, British expats who have some old financial issues back home, citizens who are coming back and might need state support, and even people who just travel a lot for work. Let's break each of these down with some real stories, because that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, this is where it stops being about abstract rules and starts being about real people facing a really stressful situation.
First on the list, dual nationals. So the deal is, if you have a British passport, but you also have another citizenship, and you've been living in that other country for 3 years or more, you could get flagged for what the law calls a prolonged absence.
And get this, here's a perfect example of what can happen. A British-Spanish dual national, born in London but living in Barcelona, was told exactly that at Stansted Airport. Just imagine trying to come home to see your family and being told you should have applied for a visa like a tourist.
And we're not talking about a quick chat here. This person was pulled aside and grilled about their entire life and their connection to the UK for 2 solid hours before being told they couldn't come in.
Okay, let's look at the next group, because this one's a bit different. This one can affect British expats who might have some old, unpaid civil debts in the UK. And we're talking about things you might not even think about, like old council tax bills or even parking fines.
The source tells us about this one case, a British citizen who'd been living out in Dubai for about 8 years. He was stopped and denied entry at Manchester Airport, all because of £3,000 in unpaid council tax from way back in 2015. He had to get right back on a plane to Dubai to try and sort it all out from there. Now this third one, this is where things get really subjective. It targets citizens who are coming home, where border officials think they might become a burden on public funds. This seems to be hitting younger Brits coming back from working holidays in places like Australia or Canada who maybe don't have a job waiting for them. And the last group, this is the one that really catches people off guard, frequent travelers. There's now an algorithm that checks your travel history. If it sees you're spending less than 183 days a year in the UK, you can get flagged for having irregular presence patterns and get questioned about why you aren't just using a visitor visa. All right, so after all of that scary stuff, you're probably asking, what on earth can I do about it if I'm in one of those groups? Well, the good news is the source gives us a really clear checklist.
The advice is actually pretty simple. Number 1, and this is the big one, get your evidence together before you even get on the plane. If you do get stopped, just stay calm and be polite. Answer their questions clearly, and if it looks like they're going to deny you entry, you need to politely ask what the legal reason is and ask to speak to a supervisor.
So, what kind of proof are we talking about? Well, this is super helpful. We're looking at things like recent UK bank statements, any proof that you own or rent a property, your NHS registration, or even your UK tax records. Basically, anything you can find that proves you haven't just cut all ties with the country.
You know, all of this really brings us back to that one kind of unsettling question. In this new world, is your British passport actually enough on its own? Now, look,
It's really, really important to stress this. For the vast majority of British citizens, people who live in the UK full-time and just go on holiday a couple of times a year, you are almost certainly not going to be affected by this. You should be absolutely fine.
But for the millions of Brits out there, the expats, the digital nomads, the dual citizens, this whole thing raises a massive question. If your right to just come home isn't unconditional anymore, what does that little blue book truly represent now?
And that leaves us with a powerful and frankly pretty chilling final takeaway from our source. If you're a British citizen living in international life, you need to be prepared. Because your British passport, it just might not be enough anymore.